All right. So this is part two. If you didn't see part one, you can I'll post the link below. This podcast will be more geared towards consumers. This one will be a little bit shorter. So I'll dive right in with the first question. Todd, what should a home buyer or seller look for in a real estate professional?
I would say number one, and Christian, you've heard me say this before. I think number one that a consumer should look for a real estate professional that has a servant-oriented heart, that is all built around service and providing service. And I think a trait, a personality trait about that too, is empathy and caring. Because I would say that real estate is about serving customers, not about selling. And when I think about consumer experiences I've had, not to, there have been salespeople before who have sold me something whether I needed it or not, who instead of maybe throwing something in on a transaction or giving me something that I really needed, well, I'm going to upcharge you for that, and I'm going to upcharge you for that, and I'm going to upcharge you for that, and even if I didn't need that thing, they're just selling and they're very hardcore selling. They're more focused on their success and what hitting their number than what me as the consumer. They're not focused on me. So I know that in my personal life, I gravitate towards people who care about me, have my best interests at heart. So I think everything real estate should be about finding someone who has your interests at heart first, and then all starts with service. I would say other things that are key to look for after that is knowledge and expertise, local neighborhood expertise. I would say professionalism, someone who has character, who's professional, who with a service oriented mindset, they're going to be professional. They're going to call you back. They're going to answer your email. They're going to provide you with that information. And more importantly, they're going to follow the rules and do the right things. They're going to have integrity, which is where professionalism, is based from. So, and I would say, lastly, it's experience and, just knowing, um, neighborhoods and knowing information. I think I already said that, but those are key things that I would look for in 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 a real estate professional.
Yeah, one thing that's pretty important to me is someone who responds pretty fast. When I bought this co-op, the realtor responded pretty fast
Right.
years ago. So that's a good one. I think that someone who's very responsive, and maybe even someone who's not working with too many clients. What do you think about that?
Well, again, yeah. I mean, I think that really what it comes, down to is who do you have a good feeling about, and when you get to know them. And I think that oftentimes a good place to start is your friends, family, and neighbors, and ask them, who did you use that helped you buy and sell? You as a consumer, you have more access to more information than we've ever had before in the history of our world. But so much of that information is conflicting, or there's too much information, and you really need someone to guide you. So I would, and someone who maybe doesn't have, if someone has too many clients, maybe they aren't going to be able to spend that
Right.
much time with you. So I think that, it's experience, it's knowledge, it's service oriented, it's professional, and I guess I would even layer on someone who's going to guide you through the process and help
Yeah.
make a complex process easy for you, or easier. I think that buying and selling a home is one of the most expensive purchases, and it's the most long-term purchase we'll typically ever make in our life. And so let's get someone who's going to come alongside us and help us and guide us through the process. That's what to look for.
Yeah, and someone who's okay with you not knowing, someone that you feel
Yeah.
comfortable asking questions to, because maybe there are some agents who are a little bit less patient, and who expect you to already know the answer. So someone who is patient with you. Patience is, I think, an
Yeah, I
important.
will say that you're also looking for someone to build a long-term relationship with. I don't, the good realtors and all of the top realtors that I talk to, they are looking to create a long-term relationship. I think it's a mistake for consumers to look at it as a transaction, or to
Interesting.
look at it as a transactional relationship, that all you're doing is opening up the door, or you're getting me some paperwork or whatever. There's so much more to this. This is a relationship. And I think that, Christian, I know with you, when you start working with your customers, you want to work with them for their entire life, their journey over the years of throughout the years. And they may start out in with one home in one neighborhood that meets one set of needs, and later on that home doesn't fit their needs anymore, and they need to do something different. And they might move, and they might need a second home, or to transition into something new that now meets their needs. And you having that knowledge of the first time you worked with them, helping them the second time, you're in it to work with them and to earn their business for life, and to create a relationship with them. And you don't want to just help do one transaction and then never talk to them again either.
Right.
So I think it's finding that person that is really going to have a long-term relationship with you, that at times is going to put your needs over and above their own. And you're going to, because I know you do that. You put your clients' needs above your own in so many instances.
Yeah.
That's the traits to look for a long-term relationship with a real estate professional. Just my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, there are some realtors who are friends with their clients for life, and I've been invited to barbecues. So yeah, you never know what that's going to turn into. It could turn into a friendship. It could turn into something much bigger than a one time transaction. So and there's nothing wrong with that either. If you do use someone for once, and then maybe you don't want to invite them to your next barbecue, there's nothing wrong with that either. It's up to you. It's up to
Right.
your own boundaries. Todd, should young people buy a home instead of renting?
I emphatically, I'm going to say I believe that in most cases the answer to that is yes. The caveat is you do need to be financially sound, and you need to be financially prepared. I think that getting someone into a home, maybe, or ownership situation when they're not ready, or if they're not financially ready, that's not doing them a great service. But I do believe that helping get someone financially ready is part of the process, and helping educate them and helping them get set up and make a plan for homeownership, and then helping them execute, by all means. And here's my number one driver of why I'm so passionate. And I would say that in most cases, the answer is yes.
Yep.
The average homeowner has 40 times more wealth than a renter
Yeah.
at any aspect of their life. And you can look at data. I would encourage consumers to go look at a website called Keeping Current Matters. It's got some information, charts and graphs, which will show this. But the typical American at their retirement age, the majority of their wealth is built in real estate. It is not in cash. It is not in 401ks. So I believe that real estate is a great way to build wealth for everyone and anyone. And I think that renters right now, when you're paying rent for someone, you're building wealth for someone else, because you're covering the financial expense, and the mortgage, so to speak, but you're also building wealth and equity then for that landlord. And I believe there's times in our life where, yes, we should be renting, but at some point, I hope that everyone turns from a renter to a homeowner, and that they begin to own a home. I think also it begins with information and knowledge. There are over 3,600 down payment assistance programs in the United States. 60% of those down payment assistance programs are geared toward first-time homebuyers, but 40% of them are not geared toward first-time homebuyers. They are geared toward anyone who is renting, who wants to own a home, and they just need some down payment assistance, or more importantly, they need lower thresholds to be able to purchase with lower amount of funds down. So I think that it's important to get with your real estate professional, help them educate you, but also that real estate professional most likely is going to get you connected to a mortgage professional who's licensed and knowledgeable on educating you on how to become financially prepared and helping you get into set up, to purchase a home and then put a plan in place. And I think the plan includes both a real estate professional and a mortgage professional working together to help you become that first time, homeowner. So, real quick, I recently I was talking to a group of young people, and I connected the group of young people with both a real estate professional and a mortgage professional who together are working to help them be informed, be knowledgeable, get pre-approved, get set up so they can begin looking. And if they can't get pre-approved, give them a plan of know what do they have to do over the next time period to get in a financial situation so they can get pre-approved. And several of those young people are actually making progress, and they are right now beginning to look for homes and property. And that's what gives me joy, because I think that there have been, I've helped young people do it 4 years ago. And
Yep.
today I'm looking at them and they are sitting on equity. They are in a better place and they are growing in their life in their way that they want. And it's been a real positive thing for them. So, I would say yes, please get into home ownership at some point in your life.
And there's nothing wrong with living at home, like I think that my personal opinion is to live at home with your parents until you can afford to buy. Don't rush to rent. Don't be one of those 21, 22 year olds that rush to rent, and then now when they're 30 they can't afford to buy. I moved out at 29. That's when I moved out of my parents' house at 29. So there's no rush. Live with your parents until you can afford to buy. And one thing that we've seen a lot in just the past like year or two is a lot of people moving back home with their parents because they can't afford the rent, they can't afford it. So, what do you have to say about that? All the people moving back home with their parents. What is your response to that?
Again, I think the ultimate goal for me is home ownership of some time for everyone. And that passion is driven from even from looking at data. I was talking to someone the other day, and it was in the industry. It was a professional economist, and we were talking about the homeless situation. And he said something to me that I wasn't aware of. And he said a large part of the homeless population is actually um, elderly or older Americans who rented instead of owning homes. And had they owned property, had they owned homes, they would they would have had equity, or they would have had maybe they'd be in a better financial situation. And the example that he used was a lot of the elderly who have rented their entire life, and this is from him, so I'm just sharing the information, that
Uh-huh.
he said what happened was when they got later in life, their income at some point became fixed, but rent kept going up and kept going up and kept going up. And at some point, they could no longer afford to rent. And if they're in an unfortunate situation where they don't have equity or they don't have family, now they become homeless. And I'd never really looked through it through that lens. So my point is, get that plan of home ownership at some point, is very important. So living it, whatever it would take, if that means living at home for a while
Yep.
and saving up that money,
Yep.
I'm all for it. I'm all for young people being independent and not, and being out on their own and not being maybe enabled for bad behavior. But if that's not the situation, moving back home should be nothing to be afraid of. And I had a chart. Now this is about a year or two old, but it was from an article, one of the financial magazines, and they were talking about the number of Americans that have moved back in with their parents in order to save money to purchase a home. And at the time, it was 18 million young Americans have moved back home with their parents. Some of them even married. Some of them, just older, but they're moving back in because when they are paying every month, it's hard for them to save up the
Yes.
money toward
Yes.
ownership. And if they do it for a short time period, by all means, do whatever you need to do to
Yeah.
purchase a home. And I also know some young people that have bought homes together with close friends or people together, and the two of them, even though they aren't maybe married or in a situation, buying a home together. So I know that gets dicey a little bit, but I'm just all for ownership by any means. And I don't feel sad about moving back home.
Yeah,
Do
I strongly agree with that. Yeah, I mean, it can be a depressing process, but I strongly agree that you have to buy a home because the thing is, at some point, your home will be paid off. Even if it takes 20, 30 years, at some point it will be paid off, and then you're just paying the utilities instead of 2,000, 3,000 in rent. So
right.
yeah, I strongly agree with
Yeah,
with
yeah,
that
right,
sentiment.
right.
Uh, Todd, why do home prices keep going up, and are they going to go down?
It's a great question, and it's probably the number one question that I get asked when people find out my role. And I would say that for me, it all starts with data and information. According to the National Association of Realtors chief economist, Dr. Lawrence Yun, his most recent report that I saw, we have a 6.5 million unit housing shortage, meaning 6.5 million more. If we had 6.5 million more homes or properties for sale, that they would be being purchased right now by consumers because they want them. We have had a tremendous amount of home ownership, or excuse me, home what I would call household creation. That's a data that we look at of new households being created, whether it's being created through people coming into the United States or older or Americans growing up and becoming of age where they're now creating a new household. Maybe they got married, maybe they're having children, and they're a new household of their own. And so what you do is you have these huge millions of new households being created. We already have a household shortage, and the
Mhm.
home building industry has not kept pace
Yep,
with those numbers. So what is happening is that the demand has been increasing and the supply has been staying steady
yep,
or in some cases even shrinking. So when you have that situation, demand is increasing, supply is staying level or shrinking,
yep,
it actually puts pressure on pricing. So then
yep.
pricing goes up. So that's why home prices have been rising. Now, some people will say, well, I'm going to wait for a crash. And 4 years ago, back in 2020, there was a group of young people. I was at a social event talking to them. And out of the 8 young people that were there, they were talking about, hey, Todd, what do you think? Should we, as young people, be buying homes? And I told them the situation economically at the time. And I said, yes. And here's why I think you should. And several of them said, I believe there's going to be a crash. And I'm going to wait for a crash because they had experienced it through their parents back, in 2007, 8, and 9. I think that was the only, real, historically, the time when home prices really went down. And it was
Yep,
because of the financial crisis, in my
yep,
opinion, when I look at the data. But anyway, several of them bought homes. Today, they have equity and home prices have only gone up.
yep,
So no one has a crystal ball. I don't have a crystal ball. If somebody tells you they know what's going to happen, even with what I'm telling you here today, you need to be informed and make your own decisions. But when I look at the data and the economic data, you have a shortage, you have demand that is outpacing supply. And as long as that remains that way, home prices are going to continue to rise. And here's one other thing. Sometimes people will say, well, I'm going to wait for interest rates to drop. And when they drop, then I will buy. Well, what happens when interest rates drop is, yes, you can afford to purchase a higher dollar home, or the home you were looking at you can purchase for less monthly payment. But what also happens typically is in a short time period from home interest rates dropping, it increases demand
yep.
and home prices then rise.
The
So
seesaw.
it outpaces each other, and the person who actually bought a home and then home prices go or interest rates go down,
Mhm.
they typically at some point can refinance, and they can refinance at the lower rate versus someone then trying to buy with a lower interest rate, but now home prices are higher and it's netted out. So I often think that right now that people should be looking at buying. I'll tell you a couple other quick stats real quick. Just um, so you have supply and demand, that whole inventory. Tons of homeowners right now over the last couple years have built equity in their homes. So home prices have gone up, their mortgages have stayed where they are. They've built this equity and this wealth in their home. So let's say that that homeowner would come into a financial situation where they are in financial trouble. Maybe they lose their job or with whatever. They've got a ton of equity in their home. Now, with the job market, they can typically get reemployed right away with the way it stands right now. So that's not a situation. But let's just say they ran into a situation that had financial problems. They could turn around and sell their home and walk away with equity and money. And because we have high demand, not enough inventory, when they put their home on the market, right now all indications are they would be able to sell it relatively easy, and they're going to sell it. So what that's done is that's kept the foreclosures very low. Typically, or and back in the mid 2000s, 2007, 8, 9, people did not have equity in their home. So
Yep.
when the financial situation happened, they put their home on the market. You also had an oversupply. It was difficult for them to sell their homes. So there were financial situations that arose, and that's why foreclosures were very high. Right now, foreclosures are very low,
Mhm.
and foreclosures have been remaining low. And if someone runs into a foreclosure situation, they can sell their home because they have a lot of equity and because demand is high, and they will walk away. So all of that leads to right now that it's not, what I can say is that the market is not the same today as it was back in 2007, 8, 9. The economic indicators are different. So make your own decision, but it leads me to believe that I believe I'm passionate about home ownership and helping more and more people own. Does that make sense?
Of course. And I think that waiting for another 2008 is a pretty bad idea. I think that a lot of young people, 1920, they look at real estate like stocks. It's up and down, up and down. Real estate is a lot more linear and a lot more consistent than stocks. We had one crash. We had one
Yeah.
crash. And I think that like a lot of people just have wishful thinking. I don't think it's a good idea to wait for another 2008. That could be 100 years from now. And I don't think that that would be a good idea at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Todd,
Right.
why should a person even use an agent? Some people say, I don't need an agent to buy. I don't need an agent to sell. Why should a person even use an agent at all?
Oh, I would say that it's the same reason why businesses hire lawyers to help them with contracts and with logistics about running a business. You have a true professional providing a professional service, which is needed because if you don't have that expertise, then the business would get into trouble. So that's why businesses will often hire lawyers to help them with transactions, with buying and selling businesses, with buying and selling land, contracts, and other things that need to happen because that expertise keeps the business. It's keeps the business out of trouble. Number one, keeps the business out of making mistakes. And it's actually financially sound. It benefits the business to hire that professional service. Lawyers are one. There's 20 other professional services. You hire a marketer to help you grow your business because they have expertise in marketing. I think the consumer needs to, I would hope that the consumer would be educated and realized that today's consumer, that realtors are there to serve them and that they're there to help and be their advocate, to be their financial fiduciary, to really help advocate for them as a on one side of a transaction with a seller. So we have a brochure here at HomeSmart that we talk about the home buying process. It's about helping consumers buy homes, and it walks through what is the home buying process. And the home buying process is actually there's a lot of steps and a lot of elements in a home buying process. And then there's also a graph here that we talk about why representation and buyer representation is just as important as seller representation. So realtors provide buyer representation to buyers and advocacy for buyers, seller representation to sellers, and seller advocacy, on one side. And together, the two professionals help the two consumers come together negotiate, and walk through. They create a purchase and they create a transaction. And so it is a professional service that is so much more um, than just opening the door and showing some property. There is knowledge, years of experience. There is marketing that happens that helps market a home out for home sellers. And there's information that years of experience that can only be learned by years of experience. I know, for example, of an agent once who was working on a buyer who was interested in a particular property, and that particular property had some things that the buyer needed to be aware of before they purchased the property, about its location, about some of the other things that were around it. And they helped make the buyer aware so the buyer could at least make an informed decision. Now, in some of those cases, the buyer goes ahead and buys the property. In some cases, they maybe they don't buy that property. It's just a way of helping the buyer be aware of all of the things that they need to be aware. So I'm a very strong advocate of consumers using realtors to both buy and sell. And I have some stories. I just want to give you one quick story. I know of a consumer who bought a brand new home from a new home builder. And sometimes consumers will think, oh, I don't need a realtor to help me. I'm buying.
Yep.
I don't need a realtor to help me. And they might go into that without that professional representation. In this particular case, what happened was, in the midst of building the home builder, it was a very wide lot, but very shallow. And the home builder built the home too close to the back property line, too far away from the front of the street. Someone, when they staked out the foundation, put it in the wrong spot. So all the plumbing was done, the electrical, the foundation, it was all built too far away from the front of the street. So the front yard was big, the backyard, which was big originally, now it's small. The home builder or the pool builder showed up to build the home, and the home was built too far back, or away from the front. There wasn't enough room for the pool. So now what happened? If that buyer didn't have an advocate, didn't have representation to help advocate for them and fight for them, who knows how that situation would have happened. In
Yep.
this particular instance, they came to a resolution and they solved the problem. One of the agents I know listening to me tell this story had a similar situation, and the home builder actually tore up the foundation and rebuilt it as per the contract.
Mhm.
So it was good that the buyer had buyer representation at the time. So I just am advocate. There's hundreds of stories like that on both the buyer and the seller side, where it's just having someone who's an advocate for you guide you through, and oftentimes those two professional parties even avoid situations arising. One of the agents I know one day told me that you know they caught that the home wasn't being built in the right spot. They were out visiting, the property, and they realized the home was too far back, and that's not their job, that's not their role, but because they were involved in the situation, they actually helped avoid a situation, and they noticed it before the foundation was even poured. So I just think that there's value in using experienced professionals in whatever you're trying to do, and in the home buying process. I think there's tremendous value in buyer representation and in seller representation. And there's too many ways to count. Real quick, in this brochure that we have here too, we have 4 pages of information about things that buyers do all the way, or buyer representatives do all the way through the buyer process, and what they do to help the buyer all along the way. So 4 pages of bullet points of, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this, we help you. We have a seller version, similar. At the back, there's 4 pages of bullet points about all the different things that a selling representative will help a seller walk through the selling process. So it's important to have that professionalism, and I'm a big advocate of working with realtors and the service that we provide, real estate agents, what we provide.
Yeah, I think the lawyer metaphor is really good. It's kind of like going to court without a lawyer. Like you don't want to do that. It's a really bad idea. Or like when if you're ever in a precinct, what are you supposed to do? First thing, lawyer, right? You're not supposed to say nothing. So I think that's a good metaphor. On top of
Right.
that, MLS is powerful. We have access to MLS. We pay for things. We pay for marketing. We pay for photography. So there are many reasons to use a realtor, and you don't want to go in blind.
Right.
Todd, do you have
Right.
tips on how to build wealth through real estate?
Yeah, I would say that again, you've heard me say this already that I believe that real estate is a great way to build wealth and to build, equity. I think that one question that realtors will often ask, uh, some of their customers, like, "Hey, have you ever thought about investing in real estate, or have you ever thought, you know, about continuing your real estate purchase?" So two quick things come to mind is that um, um, I think that a second home or a family home. I saw a post the other day about a family that bought a lake home in their for their family early on, in their marriage. And they talked about how years later, what we were really investing in was all the memories and all the family times. And having that second piece of real estate, and they showed pictures from when the kids were young out on the boat to when they were middle aged and now they're older, and all these years of memories that they created, whether that be a lake house, a mountain house, a ski home, or just a second home. Not only are you investing in memories and things like that, but all along the way too, that property increased in value, and now you're not only building wealth in your primary home, but you're building wealth in a second home. Now, additionally, some people will actually purchase property and then turn around and rent those properties and rent. So, for example, my parents, when I grew up, personal story, they bought a lake home, and what they did was they rented it out for the majority of, half of the year, and the rental income is what actually paid for the property. But we still got to go up and use the lake home on Memorial Day weekend, on 4th of July, on Labor Day weekend. And we have all these great memories, me, my cousins, everybody. But the rental income that my parents rented it out is what actually paid for that. And they did it, not just my parents, but it was my parents, my aunts, and my uncles. The three families all bought this lake home together. So
Nice.
they created memories, but the rental income also created investment and created wealth through the lake property that, you know, for all of them. So it was a sound investment. So I think rental income is a great way for consumers to offset the expense of additional real estate and to create wealth through additional properties. A third way, and this is my last thing, I'll keep it short. A lot of times I think that consumers don't understand or don't realize that if they have a 401k or an IRA, that in some cases they can take those funds that are invested in the stock market and create. Now you have to talk to a professional and follow the guidelines, but in some situations they can take that money and move it from being in an IRA or a 401k into what's called a self-directed IRA. And in a self-directed IRA, the owner of the IRA is directing where the property or where the investments are made. And so in some cases, that means it doesn't have to be in buying stocks or mutual funds. You can actually use a self-directed IRA to purchase real estate.
Yep.
So a great example is I know of an agent recently who asked one of his long-term clients, "Have you ever thought about investing in real estate and becoming an investor?" And he said, "I would love to, but I don't have the cash. I've thought about it a lot, but I don't feel like I have the cash to do that." And the real estate agent said, "Do you have a 401k? Do you have an IRA?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "Let me tell you what I did. I took 300,000 from one of my 401ks and I put it into a self-directed IRA. And I bought a piece of property, and I have a tenant in there for 2 years that is doing a lease, and they are paying rent every month. So I purchased this property with the IRA, and the rental income now is coming in every month and is going toward that. Um, it's building wealth in my IRA. On top of it, the land, the condominium that I bought it at this price and it's already worth this. And I projected in a few years it's going to be worth this. And so my investment is growing, plus there's rental income. So I took a portion of my investment income and took it out of the stock market and I put it into real estate. And I'd be happy to show you how to do that. And so, it's a diversification strategy. And I don't think a lot of Americans are aware that they can actually do that. And it's called a self-directed IRA. So as a consumer, if you're interested, you could look into that, get with a real estate professional, get with a financial professional who understands self-directed IRAs and look and see if that makes a fit for you. But I think those are some great ideas about second properties, additional wealth building for consumers, second properties that maybe have partial rental income to offset that expense. And again, professionals can help guide you through that. And then thirdly, I think the options of self-directed IRAs. Those are three great ways for someone to begin investing or creating additional wealth in real estate.
Yeah, well, the problem is that they don't teach us all this stuff in school. Like in high school, I never learned this stuff. But I actually did. I was a school safety officer for 10 years, and when I bought this co-op, I did borrow money from my 401k, and I paid like I think it was like a $70 fee. It's usually a
Yeah.
small fee, but it's so worth it. Because at the time I only had 10,000, and it's a lot worth it. It's very worth it to borrow money. A lot of people say you shouldn't borrow money, but I think real estate is a pretty valid reason to borrow
Mhm.
money from your 401k. I think real estate is a really valid reason. Otherwise, you're
Well,
renting.
you bring up a good point too. I short-term borrows from an IRA. I recently, within the last couple of years, I bought and sold, and I did it in that order. I didn't want to sell my home first and then rush to buy, so I found a home that I wanted, and I bought a home. And what enabled me to do that was I took out a short-term loan from my 401k,
Okay.
another short-term loan from my wife's 401k, and together we used that to purchase the other property first. And then after we moved into the new property, we sold our old home, our other home, and then when we received the proceeds from that sale, we paid back the loans on the
Yep.
401ks.
Yep.
And at that point, there were minor fees that were paid. There wasn't even enough time to really have a lot of interest be generated, but it enabled me to do that.
Yep.
And I learned that from a real estate agent who told me, "Did you know, Todd, you could do this?" I had no clue.
Yep.
And so again, I think that's the why I'm an advocate for real estate professionals helping consumers. There's a tremendous amount of value, tremendous amount of knowledge and information there. And in that case, it helped me do something I didn't think I could do. And that's why I'm passionate about more consumers hearing this message. Did you know you could do that? Go talk to your real estate professional and talk about all your different options and talk to your mortgage professional and find out ways to do that. So, um, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't even know that that's an option.
Um,
And the thing is, like, if you wait, let's say you wait until the money is just sitting in your bank account as opposed to borrowing. Now that could take 5, 6 years. Now home prices are even higher, so you're
Right.
actually better off borrowing money. You might have to pay a small fee depending on the job, and some jobs don't. There's no fee. I'm pretty sure. So it's much better to borrow and to buy real estate now than to wait 5, 6, 7 years, however long it takes. Now home prices are up, and now this and that. So it's better to buy as soon as possible. Buy when you can.
Yeah.
Todd, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? Because there are a lot of like 20, 21-year-olds listening to this podcast. What would you tell your 20-year-old self about buying a home and about real estate in general? What would you tell that guy?
Do more, buy more, um, or what you buy, hold on to, and buy more. And so first off, by the way, we've been talking about tactics and strategies, and maybe we should put this up in the front part of the podcast. I think that number one, all of you consumers, you do need to realize that We're sharing tips and ideas and tactics with you, but you do need to seek your own financial advice. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm not even a licensed real estate agent. I'm just giving input on economics and market data from what I see. So this is my opinion. I hope you seek your own counsel and use that to make your decisions. But knowledge can be power and can be information. And I have the benefit of interviewing people all over around the country, and hearing what they would say. And I have to laugh or chuckle a little bit because there's one common answer that made the other day I was talking to someone and I said, if you could go back to your younger self, what would you do differently? And they said, I would have bought more real estate. And I would do the same thing. If you ask me that question, I would have bought more real estate, or I would have held on to more real estate, because um, my first home, with the price that I purchased it at today, it's worth whatever. The second home, they've all grown in value. I wish I would have bought more, and I would have maybe made some different financial decisions when I was younger, and made more sacrifice maybe to do that. I missed some opportunities by not doing more of that. Now I'm older and I'm wanting to do more of that. And I just wish I would have done it when I was younger. That's a personal, question, but I think it's ironic. I would say out of 10 different people that I would talk to that are older, someone told me the other day in Modesto, I was in Modesto, and they said that they read a study that said that's one of the top regrets that most older people have, is that they didn't purchase more real estate when they were younger, or hold on to more of it. So I wish I would have held on to my first home, and I wish I would have, rented it, or I wish I would have maybe done that lake property that, rented out. I just wish I would have bought more. So,
Right. Well, also, in your defense, it was a lot easier to buy a home when we were 20 than when these 20-year-olds today. So,
right.
how would you respond to the 20, 19-year-olds today, or mainly people in their 20s who say something like, buying a home is so much harder than ever before, and home prices are higher than ever before, and I feel like buying a home is just impossible. How would you respond to that 20-year-old?
Well, first off, I would say that I understand and I empathize with you. I feel for you, and that pains me that it is more difficult for you. And I think you need to work with someone and find someone who empathizes with you and who can help you, who's committed to helping you buy and sell. Because I do believe that the affordability problem, especially in light of our supply and demand right now,
Yep.
is an issue, and you need someone that recognizes that and is going to help you find a way through it. That being said, as much as I do empathize, and it pains me that you're feeling that way, I would encourage you by whatever means to not let that be a deterrent or to be a roadblock from investing into real estate. So that's the exact conversation I had 4 years ago with that other young group, where some of them took action and some of them didn't. And some of them later have told me, I wish I would have. And the ones who did take action, they were like, I'm glad I did. So that's been my experience, is that more often than not, that's been the case. So sometimes that might mean looking at properties that are less than our desired, um, less than what we would desire. I think back to my first car, it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't the car that I wanted, but it was what I could afford. And I think that housing is a little bit of the same way, of let's maybe buy a home and let's fix it up, or let's get into home ownership, even if that means a condominium, and let's buy something, or maybe it's at a lower price point than what we really would like to live in, or maybe if it's an area. I looked at a chart the other day that was talking about driving farther to afford more. So it's, drive till you qualify was the type of a thing. So maybe I can't afford a home right now where I'm living, but if I drive 15 minutes away, I can afford a home there. And am I willing to make that sacrifice over the next couple years to drive that extra 15 minutes to afford a home? And it's things that I would look at like that to try to encourage the young people today to figure out a way. Move in with your parents.
Yep.
Move in with your parents and bank every dollar and save up that money and then get into that. Um, you know, we we are a generation that Starbucks wasn't fast enough. Starbucks had to put in a drive-through
Yep.
and make it even faster. And we want everything, fast and fast now. I was I was I made that mistake when I was younger, and that's why I'm saying now, looking back, I wish I would have maybe invested more in real estate. And so look at ways of lower price point, look at condominiums, look at some sort of multi-unit housing, whatever gets you into home ownership, and just make that first step into home ownership. I did an interview last year, 12 months ago, of two new home buyers who bought homes at the end of 2023. Both of them said they would do it again. We're glad that they did it. Both of them were very young, younger than 25. They were first time home buyers. And one of them actually bought a duplex and has a renter in half of the property and he is in the other half of the property. And he planned for 2 years, 3 years prior, saved up his money, sacrificed in order to do it. But even I talked to him the other day, a year later, still so happy that he did it and is looking now to continue his, investing in real estate or his home ownership. The other one was a female homeowner loving, her new property. Um, I just would like to figure out a way to help more young people overcome the roadblocks and let's sit down at the table. Let's figure out a way, maybe change some of our perceptions or our, goal and buy something less than desirable, but at least get into ownership. That's just my thoughts.
No, no, I strongly agree, and I think that not rushing to move out of home, back to the parent thing, I think that's a huge, huge mistake that a lot of people in their 20s make. A lot of pressure to move out of home. I understand, like it is nice to have your own space, and it is nice the privacy and the quiet. It is nice, but you can waste thousands of dollars by renting instead of just living at home. So I think that's a huge takeaway because a lot of people in their 20s they feel pressured to move out for whatever reason. They're embarrassed to live at home, or even people in their 30s. A lot of people are embarrassed to live at home. So there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a really great takeaway from this podcast. If you're in
Yeah.
your 20s or 30s, don't feel pressured. Save up for that house, even if it's just a co-op. Just save up for that. Todd, is there anything else you want to add?
Well, I guess it's more just to tie a bow on all of this. Number one, I empathize with all of you young people, as I said. And I hope that you take this from the spirit it was intended of showing you ways or showing you reasons of why maybe to put a plan in place or to set a goal toward home ownership. I hope that you are lucky and that you someday that to have that home ownership capability. And my goal, my heart, my desire is that every one in the United States, my dream would be that everyone in the United States would have home ownership, and it's the goal of home ownership for everyone. So I would love that. So let us help you, let the industry help you, let professionals help you. And if you can do it on your own without the help, okay, great. But I do think that there's tremendous value in professionals helping you. So just tying a bow on it a little bit with what you were saying at the end, about, I think, even living at home or being embarrassed about it. I think if you have a goal, to reach a goal, you got to have a plan. So if part of your plan to reach your goal is to live at home or to live with four other roommates
Mhm.
that you're sharing the rent and you're only paying 1/5 of the rent, which allows you to pocket more money away and to make an investment, then whatever your plan is, set your goals, set a plan, and execute the plan, and whatever the plan might be. And uh, and then be confident in it. And so then you don't have to be embarrassed. Well, this is part of my plan. I'm living at home. This is what I'm doing, or I'm living with five other young people. When I was younger, I actually I moved out of state, so I couldn't live with my mom and dad. But I took on multiple roommates or had multiple roommates so that I was paying less rent. I wanted to live by myself, but instead I more took up more roommates in order to because it was what I could afford.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, and I had some counsel, some advisors who told me, this is what I think you should do. So I think always asking other people, friends, colleagues, it doesn't have to be someone older. It just ask someone that you trust for advice and follow their advice. But just know that there are many real estate professionals that I rub shoulders with every day who want to help you. Professionals like Christian. The reason why Christian is doing this podcast right now is to provide information to you, to serve you, to help you, to inform you. He's doing this out of the goodness of his heart to help because he has a passion for helping all of you buy and sell real estate, no matter what your situation is. And I don't know. I mean, did I say anything untrue, Christian? Did I put words in your mouth? That, or do you agree with what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people need to realize that, real estate agents, we're not all about money. Like, we actually do care about helping. We actually do care about providing and helping. It does warm our hearts to help you buy or sell a home. And sometimes people have this misconception, oh, realtors are all about money and they're greedy. And maybe there are a few bad apples, but some of us actually care about, helping you. And like we're Todd and I, we're not getting paid for this podcast. We're just doing this for free. So we just want to establish that some of us actually genuinely care. It's not just all about the money. Todd, where can people find you?
People can find me at HomeSmart. If you go to homesmart.com/Todd Sumney, you'll find a page of some information about me. I believe it's got some social media links to it. You can always find me at tsumney at homesmart.com. So TSUMNEY at homesmart.com. You can also find me on some social media accounts. I don't do a ton of posting. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me there. Um, uh, I should do more of that. I'm, a little bit busier right now in my life than I want to be, but anyway, but I'd love to. I hope today it has been helpful. I hope you've gotten heard some good information that can inform you, empower you. To make the right decision. The bottom line is you need to make the right decision that's based for you, even if that maybe might mean now is not the right time for me to buy a home. I need to save up some money. I need to get in the right situation. And uh, so, whatever it may be, I hope that you set a goal, put a plan in place, go execute, and I hope that you reach all your wildest dreams and build your life the way that is best for you. So that's my wish to all of you listening.
And if you work hard enough and smart enough, you can achieve it. So Todd, I'll put all your information below. It was
All
great
right.
talking to you, Todd. It
Hey, it
was
was
great.
great talking to you too, Christian. Thanks for having me. I'll
Have
see
a
you.
good one, Todd. Take
All
care.
right.
Bye.